Lovely. Thank you very much, folks. I got to know from Afi and from Mariba that the conversation have been very fruitful. In fact, I was very pleasantly surprised that you've picked up not only the practical aspects of the wiki of typing whatnot and editing whatnot, but also the intellectual part of it. So like I was mentioning, Afi and Ariba sent me a quick summary of how the conversations have been going, and I'm very pleased to see that you're not only picking up skills around the wiki, but also questions that are important to wiki. It's very easy to pick up skills because skills do not really need cognitive intelligence. I don't mean any disrespect to people who are skilled learners. Skills require patience and practice. And this is testament in everything that we do. Brushing your teeth is a skill. Riding well is a skill. Navigating traffic is a skill. What bigger question are you asking yourself there? Skills is only a testament to what kind of dedication you have and what kind of patience you have. Are you willing to do the same thing for 10 years without fail? You are a very highly skilled person. The way that my mother makes biryani is unparalleled because she has been making it for a very, very long time. The way my father ignores my mother's calls when she is making biryani is again a skill because he has also been doing it for a very long time, right? So skills require time and patience. However, questions or any inquisitive nature is not only built on time and patience, but is also built on a curious mind. Curiosity forms the bedrock of something. So if you are thinking of Wiki, and I'm hoping that the last 2 days conversation has not been at that level, but if you have been thinking at Wiki as a project for skills, that's only one half of it, or probably only one quarter of it. The larger question of Wiki is not to say that I'm going to write the 5 more articles or I'm going to add to 10 other contributions. That again is a skill, like I've been trying to explain. Tomorrow, and when I say tomorrow, I don't mean 25th of February, but at later point, there might be something that happens in the technological world that will change this discord and suddenly make, okay, this is a skill that can be transferred to a machine. So what makes it important that you still become part of the movement? These are questions that should pique your curiosity. As people who are doing research, as people who have had academic training, if you were to say that I will write an excellent article, I'll be very grateful to you. But I'll be more grateful and more appreciative and more indebted to all of your work if you tell me that these are the 2 questions that I would like to pick up. These are the 5 things that I'm unable to understand, and I would like to discuss this further, because not everybody is blessed and has been trained with a certain rigor towards academics of asking not just the what questions but also aiming at the why questions. So everything that I've been saying might be a little bit of a wishy-washy conversation, so let me just foreground it by explaining a couple of things. I'm sure in the last 1.5 days, the DCW team has put together a good example of, what is a good project, what is a good article, what can be a good contribution, how can you engage with the movement, all of that. So I will take a few steps back and I'll talk about certain myths and certain realities. And maybe after that, I'll pause and we can have a conversation. If you have some thoughts, if you have some ideas, how do we take that forward? Let's begin with the myths. And let's go with the easiest one and then go to the most complex. The first myth is that we always feel an imposter syndrome, no? Which means that we always feel like somebody else can do better. In very simple terms, this is called imposter syndrome. This happens primarily because of 2 reasons. One, because systemically, we believe that somebody is better than me, whether it is the English, whether it is grammar, whether it is internet, whether it is your own subject. We always feel that, oh, but there is somebody else who can do this better than. Internet is a way to democratize knowledge. Does it have systemic flaws? Has it been perpetuating biases all over, which I think is what Chitra spoke to you about? Yes, it does all of it. But also remember that the imposter syndrome is a combination of our upbringing, lack of criticality, and the way our education system has been trained to make us feel inadequate. Does this mean that all of you should drop out of your education degrees and say goodbye to your university? No. I'm saying that we should engage with our university systems, we should engage with our education systems with criticality of saying that if this is true, then why is it true? Or if this is right, then how can I know that this is right? That amount of questioning, that amount of criticality is what will take away the imposter syndrome. I'm sure, let me take a wild guess here. In most of the things that you do, or in most of the things that you achieve or you intend to do, the first hurdle is not the activity itself. The first hurdle is not to write a thesis. The first hurdle is not to fill your application for the entrance exam. The first hurdle is to convince yourself to say, do I deserve this? Can I do this? That seems to be the first hurdle everywhere, which is true of the Wikimedia world as well, where you look at something which is incorrect, where you look at something which, is factually wrong, and you still think, oh, but somebody else should do this. The transfer of civic responsibility into knowledge activism. I will speak to these two terms a little in depth later, but just to flag, the civic responsibility and knowledge activism are key pillars of how we identify ourselves as knowledge citizens. We all have a citizenship, thanks to political identity, thanks to geography. But what is our knowledge identity? What is our civic identity in connection to knowledge? These are things that we should explore. So the first myth is that somebody can do it better. That is a myth. You can do it. You might not do it better. You might not do it best. But please remember, if somebody could have done it better, they would have already done it. So when you spot a mistake, when you see something going wrong, when you see yourself at a place where there is a a grasp of change, where it is on the cusp of the change, then please do it. That's the first myth. The second myth is is at the level of the project, that you folks have been discussing for the past 2 days. That working with Wikimedia projects is easy. There are tools, there is technology, there is DCW, there is AFI, you have AFI's number, you have Ariba's number, probably you have my email address, you have Chitra, you have Manav, everybody came and spoke to you. It might look easy. If I get stuck, I'm just going to write them an email and they will tell me what to do. Yes, we will try our best, but working with any project, working with any new concept is as difficult as you are beginning a new journey. These are not things that will come to you easily simply because you are interested. That is the question, or that is the point that I was trying to frame when I said that working with Wikipedia or working with wiki projects is not just a question of skill. It's a question of curiosity. It's a question of asking the bigger and the better questions. So when I say working with wiki is not easy, I don't mean it in a way that you should be discouraged or you should be disillusioned. I mean that the the effort that you put is proportional to the reward that you get. It is not so easy that you don't have to do anything and you achieve everything. For the folks who play cricket or who have a simple understanding of a cricket, think of this as a no ball and a full toss. You whack it, it goes to six. Zero effort, maximum returns. That's not the case. Any project that you work with, and particularly in the open knowledge movement, is difficult, is rigorous, is challenging, is demanding. It is because it has been built as an opposition, as a measure of our of our way of saying that the classical systems or the customary systems of knowledge don't really work out. And that's the reason we have to push back. So when somebody says working on Wikipedia is very easy, they mean to say that it is not as difficult as something else is when you start on your own, but it still has a learning curve. It still has a lot of rules. It still has a lot of guidelines that you have to adhere. And this is true of all projects. This is true of Wikisource. This is true of Wikipedia. This is true of Wikidata, anywhere that you want to go, right? So the first myth is that somebody else can do this better. No, you are the best person to do it if you put your heart to it. The second, working with Wiki is very easy. There are enough tools and there are enough people to help you. No, it is as difficult as you would make it or as you would want to if you were to start by yourself. It means that you have to learn, you have to practice, and you have to make sure that you understand why you're doing it. The third myth that I wanted to mention is that, like I said, it's a growing order. The, this is a myth that many of us have come across, but we really don't know how to counter it, which is internet knows everything, right? This is a myth that most of us carry, that you know we don't have to teach anything to the internet, or we don't have to teach anything to the digital. That's not true. The very reason that a project like Wikipedia is relevant, a project like Wikisource becomes relevant, a project like Wikidata becomes relevant, or for that matter, a project like OpenStreetMaps becomes relevant, is because it does not know everything. Then what does it know? It knows what the majority people who have power, who have custodianship, and who have been able to dictate terms to the internet, to the knowledge ecosystem. It only knows those things. It does not know what it is to be, somebody who's born in Karnataka in a tier 2 town and trying to struggle and to make it to an English-speaking world. It doesn't understand that. It wouldn't know the secret recipe of my grandmother making amazing dishes out of almost nothing. It wouldn't know my socio-cultural experiences of trying to make it into a big city. None of this is known to the internet. So what does internet know then? Internet knows things that people have told it. Internet knows things that people have contributed to it, which directly brings us to the point of this conversation, which is, why haven't you begun telling internet what it is that you know? And what is the best way to do it? If you have experiences, if you have knowledge, if you have information, then how do you teach it to internet? How do you talk about it to the internet? Now, there are very easily, at a very superficial, there is this way of writing a blog where I say, I'm Tanveer Hasan, these are my experiences. Does that mean that internet is learning something? Probably. It does not mean that internet is paying attention. But when you come to a project which is community curated, which works with community, which has a lot of people who invest in your effort and amplify your effort, that means internet is learning. That means that internet is listening. So the assumption that internet knows everything, you can pull out your phone and type something onto Google or Bing, or if you're very privacy conscious, you type it into DuckDuckGo, does not necessarily mean that all of the knowledge is available on internet. In fact, the very idea of knowledge that is available on internet is contentious. Who calls it knowledge? Why is that knowledge only knowledge? Why is the knowledge that is not around not to be considered as knowledge? These are all big questions. These are all epistemological questions that we would not be able to pick it up in the next 10, 15 minutes. But I just want to leave you with this question, or leave you with this understanding that internet does not know everything. Internet knows what it has been taught. And the very beginning of the knowledge activism that we were talking about earlier is to question those paradigms, is to question those assumptions and say, why is this not knowledge? Why is this not a question that is worthy for the internet to consider, right? So these are the three questions that I want to put in front of you, that you do not have to feel the imposter syndrome. You are there, you are with internet, you are at a university, you're working for an open source project, you're working with a critical question because you are the best person to do it. Working with Wiki is not easy. It is made helpful. Yes, there are many tools that will help you, but you still have to bring in the same rigor that you would if you were to write an MPhil thesis or a PhD thesis or write a good research article. If any of you here are master's students or MPhil students, or for that matter, even a doctoral student, you would understand how difficult it is to publish a peer-reviewed article. Expect this exact same process when you write on Wikipedia. If you are anybody who's interested in being an archivist, who's had some experience working in an ethnographic research or an anthropological research project, you would know how difficult it is to source a text, to prove its validity, to arrive at its provenance. That's how wiki source works. If you're somebody who's interested in data, if you're somebody who's interested in understanding the politics of data, you will realize what are the difficult conditions and connections that data is able to make. That is how Wikidata works. If you're somebody who's a good photographer, or who's a photographer who's interested in sharing your stories via images, you realize how difficult it is to take one good shot that expresses 10,000 words, right? But you know how difficult it is to get that one image to speak those 10,000 words. Wikimedia Commons works similarly. So every project that you are going to be associated, particularly in the open knowledge movement, is a difficult one, is a skill demanding one, is a is a dedication demanding. And finally, the assumption that internet knows everything or Google knows everything is a false assumption, isn't it? It does not know everything, and that is the reason why AI is scraping everything that is available on the internet and building new frontiers of knowledge. And I think we should make use of this opportunity to say, you really don't know certain things of our life, of our culture, of our knowledge at an empirical basis. So these are the myths that I wanted. Because I've spoken about the myths, it's imperative that I also speak about what the reality is. And I'll pause after the reality, and then we can have an open conversation to see where we take it. The first fact is that building of a knowledge network is not a one-day job, is not a semester's job, is not a degree, no, it's not a 3-year or a 5-year job. Let's make this clear. Our knowledge network is the work of a lifetime. What does this mean? This means that today, if I begin something, I might not be the one to finish it. I might not be the one to be recognized as, oh, this gentleman or this lady began this project and we should give them the credit. That's not how a knowledge network works. You look at any knowledge network that has been built. And when I say knowledge network, I don't mean digital. I mean any knowledge network, a good university, a good library, a good community. If you look at Elinor Armstrong's work about the knowledge commons, it is very clearly said that the whole idea of the knowledge commons is not for an individual. It is for a community. It is for a generation. So when you are working with the open knowledge, when you're working with wiki projects, you're not working for today. You're not working for that one article. You're not working for that one particular book that you're going to proofread. You're working to create a knowledge network. And that's an effort that's been ongoing. Does this mean that tomorrow somebody is going to come to you when you are, I don't know, boarding a bus or a train or a flight and say, oh, I recognize you. You are the one who created that lovely article, or you are the one who gave that lovely image. That's not going to happen. We are not content creators, right? We are knowledge creators. There's a big difference to it. So when you are creating knowledge networks, it is the work of a lifetime. That's the first reality. The second reality is that bias and apathy are usually masked as this is not important or we do not have time for this. I'm going to explain it one more time or repeat it one more time. Bias and apathy are not usually explained or not usually expressed as bias and apathy. They're masked as, oh, this is not important, or we will get to it at some point, or I don't have time now. It means that there is politics in knowledge. It means that whoever is making the decision does not understand or does not recognize that this is equally critical when you speak of knowledge. There are multiple layers of knowledge and there are multiple politics to those layers of knowledge. If you are going to express bias and apathy in very clear terms, you have a very structural response. You have a way to protest it. But what happens if it comes across as ignorance? What happens when it comes across as qualities of inefficiency, right? So when you look at systemic challenges towards the creation of knowledge, you will also have to keep in mind that it is not just about give and take exchange of knowledge. It is about understanding what are the systemic problems. Why are some people biased towards a particular kind of knowledge? Why is there apathy towards accepting certain strains of knowledge or certain streams of knowledge? And how do you counter it? You counter it by saying that I am the best person to be part of this conversation. The imposter syndrome that we were talking about, when you fight that imposter syndrome, when you fight against or push back against that imposter syndrome, is the best way to take that forward. Okay? The last reality that I want to put in front of you and pause is systemic changes are not really changes that come from systems, right? Now, this might sound a little bit of an oxymoron or a little bit of a contrarian position. A systemic change is really the will of an individual, the effort of a community, and the recognition by a system. I'm going to explain it, right? Systemic change, whatever this means. Let's just take polio eradication, for example. Now, the eradication of polio in our country is seen as a systemic change. The entire system gravitated towards it, and now we are reaping the benefit of it, or for that matter, white revolution. But at the heart of it, it was really an individual who decided to bring about that change. And that person, that individual's will was so strong, was so efficient, and was able to hold on to that idea of change, even though the most difficult times, even through the most difficult times. The next stage of it, from the will, is the dedication and the support of a community. No systemic change can happen from an individual only. It begins with an individual, but it cannot stop and it cannot fruition with an individual only. It has to go to a certain higher context, which is at this point a community. So if you are to think that Ariba and Afi and Chitra and Manav are all individuals, and Rachit, I don't know who else came into the conversation, but if you think that they are the proponents of the change, by themselves, they will not be able to do anything. They might be the people who are talking about change, who are holding on to the idea of the change. But you need a community. That community is all of you. Everybody who's sitting in this room, everybody who's thinking, what the hell is Tanveer is talking about? You are that community. So you have a good idea and you have an individual who's holding on to that idea and saying that I'm going to invest my life into it. And you have a community that says that we are going to work with you. So it is the will of an individual, it is the support and the dedication of a community, and then it is the recognition from a system. It could be the system of academics, it could be the system of researchers, it could be the system of knowledge activists, it could be the system in some other way. So it's a gradual process. An idea that is held by an individual for a systemic change, then it is the support from a community, and finally it is the recognition by the system. That is how systemic change works, right? I'm going to take 20 to 30 seconds more, and then I'll pause, and I'm happy to engage if there are questions. What does this mean? What should we all do? I really don't have a to-do list. I really don't know to say, okay, these are the 5 things that you have to do, and after that, life is going to be, fun and all enjoyment. That's not a solution for us. But I do have 2 broad pointers that you should take a look at, only if you find them to be reasonable and important for you. The first pointer is that the knowledge gap, the systemic knowledge gap or the epistemological knowledge gap is there for a reason. It is not because certain texts have not been published. It is not because certain kind of traditions of knowledge have not been recognized. It is there because people have not articulated for it. People have not built a voice of knowledge around it. Knowledge in itself is not helpful if there is no voice to the knowledge. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say? When we began this conversation, we began with skills, right? When I was saying skill is the same thing that you keep doing again and again, and you acquire proficiency around it. Knowledge is a combination of skills plus those questions of saying, why is the skill important? What is the importance of this skill to the larger society? If this skill goes away, or if this knowledge goes away, then what loss are we looking at? So in itself, it doesn't matter how many streams of knowledge you hold at your level. It is very important that the knowledge that you represent has a voice. And that voice is one of these projects, in whatever your fancies. If you think Wikidata is your project, then that's your project. If you think Commons is your project, then that's your project. Anything that you would like to do this, right? That's the first pointer. Sorry, should I pause?
You can go on, I guess.
I'll just take another 30 seconds and I'll be done. So that's the first pointer. So whatever knowledge, whatever information that you're working with, either at your professional level or at your academic level, think of yourselves as the ambassadors of that knowledge, ambassadors of that information, which means you're giving knowledge a voice. That's one. What is the second pointer that I want to leave you with? I want to leave you with this scenario where you're saying that the knowledge activism cannot be done only on the basis of information. If you're a knowledge activist, it can't just be information. It has to be a little more than information. It has to be lived experiences. It has to be, certain social realities. Those social realities, those lived experiences are what is missing on the internet at this point. The internet has been able to scrape everything that is available for easy ingestion and given as AIs, given as LLMs. But the nuances, the difficulties, the struggles, the marginalities of our knowledge, I don't think that's visible on the internet, or not prominently visible on the internet. I think those should be our areas of concern. Those should be the fights that we should be fighting. I'll pause here, and I'm happy to. First of all, did I make sense? If I did not make sense, I'll go back and speak about whatever I was thinking and try to explain it better. But if I did make sense, and if you have ideas, if you have any opinions, suggestions, very happy to receive them. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanveer. Thank you so much. We can move on to the participants. If you have any question or you feel like we were not able to understand anything that Tanveer has explained here.
If you could expand a little bit more on the last point mentioned on knowledge activism.
Yes, can you explain again what do you exactly mean by knowledge activism? And then you told it's different from like that point is not clear to everyone.
I'll try to share my thoughts. I'm not a definitive authority on this. So I believe knowledge activism is a two-part conversation. The first part, obviously, is to ask difficult questions, to question the foundations of knowledge, and to say, if A is knowledge, why is B not considered? Why is there a hierarchy in the sources that we look at? Why is there a certain agreement or a certain bias in the way that we look at? But I think part B to knowledge activism is not something that we engage very often, which is to say, if knowledge is really a tool for us to bring revolution, or if it is really a tool for us to bring change, why do we always go towards predictability? Why do we always work with sources that are, or structures that are predictable and well recognized? Uh, when I say knowledge activism, I'm saying that there is, sorry for using a very banal term, there's no risk in the knowledge production that we do, right? You write an article, you get the citation that probably your professor or your peers have done, and somebody else refers your article because your professor or their peers have cited that article. It's a vortex, or it's a system that's been continuing for a very long time. Knowledge activism is to break that chain and say, I'm willing to put my neck out to think about this. So that's knowledge activism. A very good example of knowledge activism is how the Dalit and Bahujan voices, critical voices, have been reshaping certain sectors of academia or certain questions in academia. If you look at a good sociology class taught at the university level, it no longer only talks about equity and representation, it talks about violence. And that happened only because of knowledge activism coming from the Dalit and Bahujan friends. They were able to bring in those conversations to say that it is not enough if we only speak about representation at a broad level. It's very important to speak about our lived experiences, our lived reality. That's the knowledge activism that I had in mind. I hope that was helpful.
I hope you have understood. Is there any other question? Yes.
Question I would just like to ask, one thing you would like to advise to the younger self who is just breaking into this Wikimedia ecosystem, like one advice or something. What would it be? Yeah.
Did you get the question?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I think the advice, I don't know. Think of this. Okay, I'm going to be very cheeky here, so please allow me to be cheeky. Think of this as a long-term relationship. Anybody who wants to work with Wikimedia project, think of this as a long-term relationship. There are going to be a lot of downs before you see the ups. So yeah. Your first few articles are going to be deleted. Your first few references are going to be taken out. Your first few Wikidata entries are going to be like, why the hell is this important? Your first few photos are going to be flagged for copyright violation. Something like that, right? There are going to be more challenges. So think of this as a long-term relationship.
Okay, thank you. We are also done now. Thank you, Tanveer. Thank you so much. Yes.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Is there anything left to share?
From my end, no, but did it make sense? Was this what Afi and you were thinking when you wanted me to do this, or did I just do a bad
Yes,
job of
no,
this?
no, perfectly. No, it was good. It was absolutely fine and good.
Thank you.
I think we are ending now.
Thank you very much. Rob, I wish you all of the best to engage in knowledge activities, knowledge activism, although it is not very clear. The next time we meet, we should sit and talk about this more. Uh, do think about contributing to Wikimedia projects as not just a volunteer activity, but also an activity that is building knowledge, that is shaping knowledge. So yes, there is a credit somewhere, even though it is not visible. But more importantly, you're doing this because somebody else does not have to ask why this was not done, right? I think we are building knowledge systems, and that's very important.
Yes, that's right. Okay then.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Allah Hafiz.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.